up, fam? It's your boy, Big Walt, back with more Blockchain 411. El Salvador remains in the news, fam, for its decision to treat Bitcoin as legal tender. You might recall my recent video entitled, El Salvador recognizes Bitcoin as legal tender, and guess who's mad? That video focused on how the IMF responded to this move. I wanted to come back and update you guys because there's been a few developments since I released that video. First, and as could be expected, there were some glitches with the rollout. Additionally, and maybe this wasn't predictable, maybe it was, but there have been some major protests in the streets across El Salvador as a result of the move. I'll catch you guys up on the other side of the intro. Rock with me. So yeah, fam, let's go ahead and dig in. The Block reports El Salvador launches Chivo wallet as Bitcoin becomes legal tender. This was on the 7th, by the way. El Salvador launched the Chivo wallet today, the same day that a law making Bitcoin legal tender in the Central American country went into effect. Ahead of the occasion, El Salvador's president, Nayib Bukele, tweeted on September 6th that El Salvador had just purchased 200 additional Bitcoin for $10.2 million, bringing its total to 400 Bitcoins overall. The Chivo wallet, slang for cool, will support free transactions in Bitcoin and US dollars for individuals and companies. Now, this is an important point. The transactions will be free. That means the wallet operator is either eating the transaction fees or, more than likely, it's a custodial wallet. And when Bitcoin transfer from one person to the next, they're really not, moving it on the blockchain, incurring transaction fees. So it's free. Same thing for US dollars. So they're probably keeping a secondary account and then moving money, in between. I don't know that for a fact, but based on my understanding of this whole thing, that's what I think is happening. Anyway, Mexico-based exchange Bitso will provide the core crypto services for Chivo. Bitso says it's working with California-based Silvergate Bank to facilitate the dollar transactions, and the app will support automatic liquidation of Bitcoin transactions into dollars, as well as withdrawals at Bitcoin ATMs around the country. It appears that Chivo could have a broader reach beyond El Salvador, although details are still developing. There are probably a lot of people who aren't happy about that possibility, right? That's going to be eating into other people's business. In an announcement, Bitso also said that people without El Salvadorian citizenship will be able to access the app, and that the wallet supports payments from people and businesses, quote, anywhere in the world. Bitso, which counts more than 2.75 million users, highlighted the importance of remittances in El Salvador and will be building on its expertise in other markets, including Mexico, Brazil, and Argentina. According to Bitso, its services have enabled more than $1.2 billion worth of remittances between the US and Mexico in 2020 alone, reducing costs by 50 to 70% and cutting down processing time. Now, let me just say this, that $1.2 billion worth of remittances, Western Union and MoneyGram might see that as $1.2 billion worth of remittances that those companies should have facilitated and incurring the transaction fees associated with it, representing those 50 to 70% cost cuttings. So this might be good for El Salvadorian citizens, and this might be good for those in Mexico, Brazil, and Argentina who are already using Bitso, but it's not good for Western Union because that means this new upstart has just made incursions into their market share to the tune of $1.2 billion. So keep that in mind as we go through the rest of this story. Quote, Latin America in general presents great opportunities for products that seek to reduce costs in cross-border payments, Santiago Alvarado, Bitso's director of cross-border payments, told The Block. The region is home to numerous large migration corridors, and remittance flows to low and middle income countries in the region represent almost 20% of all remittance flows in the world. However, many questions remain about how many people in El Salvador will use Chivo, even though those who sign up for the wallet will receive $30 in Bitcoin. Some have protested the measure, and Reuters recently reported that most Salvadorians disagree with the new Bitcoin law based on a poll from a local university. All right. So, there's kind of a lot to unpack, in that last paragraph, but I'm going to go over a couple of other articles, and we'll get to all that. I need you to do me a favor, fam. Please click that subscribe button and the like button. It might be a small thing to you, but to us it's huge. We're trying to hit this 1,000 subscriber milestone, one subscriber at a time. So YouTube will recognize us and give us access to the tools that will allow us to bring you more and even better content. Thank you for your support, fam. We really appreciate you. So the Time reports that glitches still plague Bitcoin's rollout in El Salvador. And this article, is mostly talking about how, President Bukele, was trying to facilitate, calm as this thing got rolled out, and also gives a bunch of different anecdotal experiences from a number of different people who, either tried to use the ATM and it didn't work, or they tried to use the app and they had some kind of issue with the app or whatever. But what I wanted to point out here very specifically was this particular passage in the article. It says, at a Starbucks, the cashier explained that before using any of the $30 Bitcoin credit, he would have to transfer at least $1 to a friend or someone else, and then it would be activated to buy or pay for whatever you want. And basically, the El Salvadorian government, says as an incentive, if you use the Chivo wallet, we'll give you $30 worth of Bitcoin. So, as you might imagine, people are basically like, beating down the door to sign up for this thing so they get these $30 free dollars. But Starbucks can't use it until it seems like the account's been activated, and the only way you can activate the account is to do a personal transaction or peer-to-peer transaction. And once you do your first peer-to-peer transaction, which the minimum might be $1, I guess, then you can use it at Starbucks. That's the way I understand it. It continues. She says Starbucks accepted not only payment through Chivo, but other digital wallets as well. That's also important here. Chivo is just sort of like the government option, the public option, crypto wallet. And they built it so that it would be easy for people to use, to get people who have no experience with crypto to be able to use this wallet sanctioned by the government in a safe way. But the government didn't pass a law to support Chivo. The government passed a law that businesses need to accept Bitcoin as legal tender. And so that means the businesses need to be able to accept Bitcoin, however they get it, whether that's coming from a Chivo wallet, whether it's coming from, another Bitcoin wallet. The business, if they have the technical ability, would have to accept that Bitcoin from multiple wallets. This is important because it goes to the fact that the government is not forcing people to use Chivo specifically. The government's not forcing people to use anything. It's just providing a public option. If you don't have your own crypto wallet or you're not comfortable with other, Bitcoin wallets, then feel free to use Chivo. If you're comfortable using another Bitcoin wallet, then by all means use that. You just won't get the $30, unless you use Chivo. If you want, you can use Chivo, get the $30, and then after you're done, using the $30 in your Chivo wallet, go back to using the Bitcoin wallet of your choice. So it's not really, super onerous, right? So this next article, the headline, El Salvador president steps in to fix Bitcoin rollout snags. Now, the article tries to position it, as it's somehow a negative thing. From my perspective, the guy's just showing leadership, right? There are technical snags, during this rollout. So instead of going in the closet and hiding, showing no leadership, he's out there in front of it. He's on Twitter. He's urging the people to be calm. He's sending out messages, letting people know that, they're trying to, parcel it out so that the servers aren't overwhelmed. Things that, you naturally, tell people as you're rolling out some new technology. I think, one of the things that I wanted to showcase out of this article was, they actually have, pictures of the Starbucks, indicating that they are accepting Bitcoin. I thought that was pretty cool. And they also have an image of an actual Chivo wallet. And so, looks relatively attractive and simple. You know what I mean? So good on them. One other thing to note from this article is this passage. On the El Salvador edition of Apple, or Apple's App Store, Chivo was the #1 downloaded financial app on Wednesday. So that strikes me as a success, right? Anytime you're #1 on the App Store, that means you're doing something right. You know what I mean? And if you're #1 in the App Store and you happen to overwhelm your servers that day, I mean, I don't think that's a black eye at all. It's actually to be expected. We all know that, you don't buy resources for the spike. You buy resources for your normal levels, of demand. Now, could they have finagled, some, elastic cloud resources to help, mitigate, downtime, from the spike? Sure. But, I'm not gonna, give them a failing grade for that. Shit happens. It's normal part of technology rollouts. This other CNBC article, it's Bitcoin tumbles nearly 10% as El Salvador adopts it as legal tender. They're not exactly saying it, but are they intimating that because El Salvador adopted, Bitcoin as legal tender, Bitcoin tumbled? Who knows? But anyway, this is some kind of hyperbolic headline that is trying to indicate doom and gloom, that somehow what El Salvador did was not a good thing. And just keep in mind, El Salvador is not saying that the dollar is no longer legal tender. They're just saying that in addition to the dollar, Bitcoin is now also legal tender. So it's not poo-pooing one for the other. Anyway, with all this talk about how there's glitches in the rollout and things like that, I just thought I'd remind people. Remember this? Healthcare.gov plagued by crashes on first day. Even big old, America #1, I love our country. Don't take that the wrong way. But I'm just saying, sometimes, we act like our shit don't stink. We rolled something out, right? Nationwide rollout. And there were glitches. Why? Because there's huge spikes in demand. That's a very difficult thing to manage. And so, I'm not mad at El Salvador because they experienced some downtime or some people, experienced service blackouts because the system was overwhelmed on, opening day, where of course there's going to be huge spikes and the system's going to be overwhelmed. Just more, this one's from Harvard Business Review, about the fact that, the Healthcare.gov system was down. But I thought this was kind of funny. This quote right here, quote, "I'm going to try to download every movie ever made, and you're going to try to sign up for Obamacare, and we'll see which happens first." That was Jon Stewart challenging Kathleen Sebelius, who's the Secretary of Health and Human Services. A little bit of humor, but it just goes to show, that was a huge undertaking. There was some problems. But, if you go to healthcare.gov now, it's a smooth experience. I've used the site myself, a couple times, over the years. I had zero problems. And, it actually, the user experience was quite pleasant. In full disclosure, once upon a time, I actually was a subcontractor working on this product. So I do take a little bit of pride in that I helped to make it, better. But again, that's a different story. So we talked about the rollout glitches, which again, it happens to the best of us. But the other thing, and maybe I just wasn't paying enough attention, but I wasn't expecting this, but there are people protesting this. I always thought Bitcoin was meant for the little guy and that it was democratizing money and this sort of thing. But there are actually people in the streets protesting. So let's take a look at this article in Decrypt. The title is "Anti-Bitcoin Protests Escalate on El Salvador Independence Day. Thousands took to the streets of the nation's capital. Many were protesting against the country's Bitcoin law." So protests in El Salvador escalated Wednesday on the country's Independence Day, with local press reporting citizens' fury at the country's new Bitcoin law. Protesters set fire to a Bitcoin ATM in the capital of San Salvador. Some took to the streets holding placards that read, "We don't want Bitcoin" and "No to dictatorship." El Salvador on September 7th made Bitcoin legal tender in the country. It's the first country to do so. The country's president, Nayib Bukele, slammed the citizens on Twitter who did not stop vandalism. He also lashed out at the press. There have been protests against the move, the brainchild of President Bukele, since July and August, but today protests were by far the fiercest, with thousands of citizens taking to the streets, according to local media. Salvadorians are just not protesting against the Bitcoin law, but also against President Bukele, who some believe has weakened the country's courts and consolidated too much power. Though Bukele previously fared well in opinion polls for improving security in the tiny Central American country, he has come in for criticism lately over perceived authoritarianism. The Bitcoin law, announced by Bukele in June and adopted by the legislature shortly thereafter, means that businesses have to accept payment in Bitcoin if they have the technology. Citizens are not required to use the asset, but are encouraged to do so. Those who sign up to use the government's official crypto wallet, Chivo, are rewarded $30 in Bitcoin. Chivo has had technical issues since Bitcoin became legal tender in the country. Investment banks such as JP Morgan, US officials, and even the World Bank have criticized El Salvador's Bitcoin law, claiming it would be hard to implement. Today's protests are evidence that they may be right. I don't know. Maybe. It could be that those protests are some natural, result of people's fear of technology, some, inherent Luddite tendencies. It could be, other things. Or, it could be, this is probably going to sound conspiracy theorist or whatever, but it could be that the powers that be, or those who, have a lot to lose if this is implemented, are supporting and facilitating dissidents. Totally possible. Happens all the time. Particularly in the Southern Cone in South America, there's a history of this exact thing. You know what I mean? It just is the case. So, that was Decrypt's take on it. There's another article that I read, on the same topic in Cointelegraph. The title is El Salvador's Bitcoin Detractors, Opposition Groups Gather as Crypto Laws Roll Out. Some are resisting El Salvador's move to make Bitcoin a legal tender, citing its lack of education and volatility of BTC. So, I'm not going to read this article. I'll let you read it yourself. I'll put links to all these resources down in the description, but I did want to read this passage. In his announcement, Bukele said that once an official bill to make Bitcoin legal tender was passed, Chivo ATMs, Chivo being the name of the official BTC wallet for El Salvador, would eventually be everywhere in the country. This would allow El Salvadorans to withdraw Bitcoin in cash without incurring any commissions on their holdings, as is the case with services such as Western Union. Meaning, using services such as Western Union, you get penalties when you withdraw. Penalties in the form of commissions or tax, basically. Moreover, Bukele assured citizens that no one would be forced to use Bitcoin. In a statement, the 40-year-old president said that, quote, someone can always queue up at Western Union and pay a commission. If you don't like accessing your money for free, then you don't have to. You can always go to Western Union and pay those cats for the privilege of accessing your money. He goes on, quote, what if someone doesn't want to use Bitcoin? Well, don't download the app and continue living your normal life. Nobody is going to take your dollars, he said. So that's what I wanted to end on. And again, why all this protest? One, nobody's forcing you to use it. If you don't want to use it, don't use it as a citizen. The only businesses that have to accept it as legal tender are the ones with the technical capacity to do so. So even there's wiggle room, right? So why this protest? What's the average citizen has to lose? What does the average citizen have to lose because the country is now, recognizing Bitcoin as legal tender? The average citizen has nothing to lose. So then why is the average citizen out there protesting? This is what makes me think these protests, aren't all that grassroots, right? You start to understand who who's the winners and who's the losers in this thing? Who benefits if Bitcoin is not accepted as legal tender, right? Who loses if Bitcoin is accepted as legal tender, right? That's typically how you get a deeper understanding of things, because sometimes in the media, the surface level reporting doesn't really get to the heart of the matter. Well, yeah, fam, that's what's going on with this El Salvador Bitcoin move. Tell me what you think. Do you think that these are natural grassroots protests? Or do you think that maybe there's some regime change in the air? Maybe the IMF or World Bank is making some moves. I don't know. Let's just say these protests are legit, though. Do you think the El Salvadorian people should be protesting? Do you think this is something to protest about? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, that's it for now. I'll see you next time I pull up on the block. Until then, holla.